For the rest of the news for September 14th of 2019. Saudi princess found guilty of ordering her bodyguard to beat up craftsman. You heard that right. Out of Paris. And yes, this is a CNN story, but I'm using it. This means I can't rib, Merlin when he comes back. The sister of Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has been found guilty of ordering a bodyguard to beat and humiliate a local craftsman who was renovating her luxury Paris apartment 3 years ago. Princess Hafsa bint Salman Al Saud was handed a 10-month suspended sentence and fined 10,000 euros, which is $11,000 for us, by a French court Thursday. Have a great day, Sora Luna. I hope all goes well at the doctor's office. She was sentenced in absentia, found guilty of armed violence and complicity to hold someone against their will. Her bodyguard was handed an 8-month suspended prison sentence in order to pay 5,000 euros or $5,600 as a fine. Sharaf Ashraf Aid, an Egyptian-born French national whose name I completely butchered all the hell back, had said the prince's bodyguard attacked him after she accused him of taking photos and videos of her in September 2016. He alleged the guard hit him, tied up his wrists, put a gun to his head, and ordered him to kiss the princess's feet. And of course, the princess says, I didn't do it. I'm completely innocent. I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing. Aid previously said he was working in a bathroom in the apartment on the Paris exclusive Avenue Foch, joined by the Saudi Arabia King Salman bin Abdulaziz Saud. Can they shorten these names? Do you need that many names in a string? Is that necessary? And took photographs of the furniture for reference when he noticed the princess's reflection in the mirror. Aid's account read in court in July, when the princess saw him, she allegedly ordered her bodyguard Rani Saidi to take his phone. Aid claims Saidi then manhandled him and kicked him in the face. You're all the same, bastards, dogs. You'll see how you should speak to a princess, how one should speak to the royal family. He says Saidi put a gun to the back of his head and gave him 2 choices: kiss the princess's feet or risk further assault. An investigative judge tried to contact the princess several times but was unable to reach her, of course, eventually issuing an international arrest warrant for her in 2017. Insert thumbs up emoji here. Boop. There we go. There you go. I'll do it for you. Alrighty then. Taliban visits Moscow days after Trump says talks are dead. Or Moscow. In honor of our dear Merlin. A negotiating team from the Taliban arrived Friday in Russia. Now remember, there were tweets. The only thing that we heard about this between the president and the Taliban was the president canceling it because of, the Taliban killing one of our own. That's about it. The secret meeting that he had to tweet about that wasn't going to happen at Camp David. That was some things he shouldn't tweet about. I think we would have been better off not knowing, but whatever. He has, what do you call it? Twitteria, which is Maddy-ism for Twitter diarrhea. He has Twitteria. All right. Arriving Friday in Russia, a representative told the Associated Press just days after U.S. President Donald Trump declared dead a deal with the insurgent group in Afghanistan. You could have, worded that better, AP. The Russian state's news agency TASS cited the Taliban's Qatar-based spokesman Suhail Shaheen as saying the delegation had held consultations with Zamir Kabulov, President Vladimir Putin's envoy for Afghanistan. The visit was confirmed to the AP by the Taliban official, who spoke on condition of anonymity because he was not authorized to talk to reporters. MC says you have to believe he even planned a meeting in the first place. For all I know, he was just trolling the media with that. Yeah, he can be a troll. He does shoot us off at the mouth with his Twitteria. So, yeah. The Interfax news agency cited an unidentified Russian foreign ministry spokesman as saying the meeting in Russia underlined the necessity of renewing talks between the U.S. and the Taliban, and that the Taliban confirmed their readiness to continuing dialogue with Washington. That's a good sign. Taliban's first international visit following the collapse of talks with Washington. The team was being led by Mullah Sher Mohammed Stanikzai. I guess that's how you say that last name. Probably butchered the crap out of it, but there you go. This is big. This actually happens. This can be big. This is a notable development as it suggests the Taliban wants to underscore its continued interest in dialogue even after President Trump pulled the plug on the U.S. Taliban talks, said Michael Kugelman, Deputy Director of the Asia Program at the Western Washington-based Wilson Center, and how striking that the insurgents have chosen to telegraph a message of conciliation by engaging with Moscow, a key U.S. rival that has made great efforts to deepen ties with the Taliban in recent months. Trump had called off negotiations, and so here's this part right here. Lopez. Trump had called off negotiations and canceled a meeting he said he wanted to have with Afghan government leaders and the Taliban at Camp David presidential retreat. There's a lot of boasts and a lot of hot air that comes out of his mouth. I am not a Trump fan of the man. Now, I take his proposals on a case-by-case basis. Some of his things have done well. Some of his things I want to wring his neck for. Not that I'm going to. That's not a threat on the president. That's just, in Minecraft. Breaking news. Maddy the news chick has suffered a suicide. Taliban's official website on Tuesday, the group was still communicating with U.S. negotiators. Okay, so they're still communicating. That's good. At least to find out what to do next. So all their shit's up in the air. Taliban Shura, or Leadership Council, opposed its negotiators going to Camp David and admonished those who had accepted U.S. peace envoy Zalmay Khalilzad's invitation that was extended at the end of August. Shaheen was quoted on the website as saying the Camp David visit was delayed, saying the Taliban wanted the agreement signed and witnessed by foreign ministers of several countries, including Russia. He said Taliban also want Qatar to announce the agreement before any Camp David meeting. So they're waiting on some of the, Arab Emirate members to go, yeah, sure. Cool, go. Get this shit done and over with. We need, at least stick to your word. That is what we need to see if they're going to stick to their word or not. Moscow has been accused of aiding the Taliban as a safeguard against a burgeoning Islamic State affiliate that has close ties to the Islamic movement of Afghanistan, a militant group in Central Asia. Russia has stepped up its defenses in Central Asia and has claimed thousands of IS fighters were in northern Afghanistan. Twice this year hosted meetings. Moscow has twice hosted meetings between Taliban and prominent Afghan personalities. Washington has been seeking an exit to its longest war. The Taliban are at their strongest since their ouster in 2001 and hold sway over more than half the country, staging near daily deadly attacks across Afghanistan. So they haven't stopped their shenanigans. This is one of those situations where they're not going to stop doing what they're doing at all. Okay? And the only difference between them and the people that bombed Kabul's wedding last month, is that the Taliban, not that it makes it any better, and put that caveat in there, is that they attack government installations, military installations, and things of that nature. But they don't show any signs of slowing down. Just airstrikes isn't going to work. Okay? Nuking the place to me, is not an option, because whether some people want to believe it or not, there are people living in Afghanistan that don't believe in what the Taliban is doing. They just want the shit to end, and they just want to live in peace. And making these people glow in the dark or turning them into dust, to me, is not ethical. Now, some would argue and say that there isn't such thing as an ethical Islamist or an ethical Muslim. I beg to differ. There are Islamic reformists. There are people that are Muslim that are trying to reform the Islam religion to walk away from the more militant and radical tenets of their holy books, because there's more than just the Quran. They want a complete reformation of the Islamic religion. This I can admire, because Christianity went through a reformation. That's why women that are on their periods now don't have to leave the city for 7 fucking days while they're bleeding, and stay out of the city for 7 more days till they're considered clean. That's why we don't have to sacrifice shit anymore, or, why Hebrews don't sacrifice people anymore, or animals, if they do something unclean. The Bible, Judaism and Christianity have gone through reformations. It's time for Islam to do the same. And some of the Muslim community have realized this, and they're starting a movement. And this movement has been going on for several years. The problem with this Reformation movement is, though we accept the Reformation movement for what it is, a massive change and a walk away from the radical forms of Islam, the radical Islamists now consider those people that want a reform of the Islamic religion as apostates, heretics, and people that need to be... MC, ethics isn't the issue anymore. If they were ethical, then they should have stopped them or left. The Ripper Mitch. Dust never hijacked a plane, and reformations do not happen overnight. It's a generational thing. It is. It is. Yep. See, it's... MC, you think in terms of black and white. It's easy to say they should have stopped them or left. But remember, the radical Islam movement, and I am a radical... I'm putting this in italics, bold, in all caps. The radical Islamic movement shoots anyone who doesn't agree with the actual text of the Quran. These are fundamentalists in the most extreme word of fundamentalism. If the people that are also Muslim don't agree with these radical Islamists, they don't live for very long. They're considered apostates, blasphemers, and they need to be hung unless they, reform back to the old way of Islam. These people are stuck, in my opinion. All right, here we go. Coming for your AR-15? O'Rourke scrambles Dems gun message. Yeah, and the Dems aren't happy about it. Beto O'Rourke, hell yes, moment at the Democrats' presidential debate is scrambling his party's message on guns. The boy just needs to keep his mouth shut. The Democrats have long contended that their support of gun control laws does not mean they want to take away law-abiding citizens' firearms. In the march forward for propaganda, we don't want to take your guns. We don't want to take your guns. Hell yes! We're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47, which we can't buy, by the way, because it's a military weapon. Beto, you fake fucking Hispanic. And we're not going to allow it to be used against your fellow Americans anymore, the former Texas congressman declared during Thursday night's debate. However, some fellow Democrats chastised him and fretted that his remarks may have made things harder for gun control supporters as they negotiate with President Trump on legislation to respond to this summer's mass shootings. Mitch the Ripper. Beto is un-Hispanic. Exactly. Totally un-Hispanic. I frankly think that clip will be played for years at Second Amendment rallies with organizations that try to scare people by saying Democrats are coming for your guns. Senator Chris Coons of Delaware told CNN Friday, I don't think a majority of the Senate or the country is going to embrace mandatory buybacks. We need to focus on what we can get done. Like the scare tactics you're trying to put on us by trying to make us scared of something that you keep calling an assault rifle or an assault style weapon or a military style weapon. That kind of scare tactic, that kind of scaring of people, to the point where a kid can't even bring a bubble shooting gun to school that doesn't look anything like a fucking gun without being suspended. That kind of scare tactic. I digress. This is what their goal is. We've always said it. Now they're saying it. Said Alan Gottlieb of the Second Amendment Foundation, based in Washington State. Now they've said it, and we're going to make them eat it, which you should. Meanwhile, Coons is working with Republican Senator Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania on a measure to require that law enforcement officials be notified when someone fails a gun purchase background check. Toomey, who is also working with Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia on the firearms issue, agreed that O'Rourke's comments could backfire. They're going to. Okay, so this I don't have a problem with, but shouldn't they already be notified by the database that it's supposed to be updated and inputted by everybody that sells a gun? I think it's FFL. It's FFL certified. If these people don't pass the background check, isn't that noted in the FFL database? Or am I missing something? The Ripper Mitch. New York style deli means the deli is not in New York. What does assault style weapon mean? I don't know, but you know that's the rhetoric they're using every time there's a shooting. This rhetoric undermines and hurts bipartisan efforts to actually make progress on common sense gun safety efforts like expanding background checks. How much further are you going to expand them? Much respect to Senator Coons for leading the fight on background checks, he tweeted, but the time for letting status quo politics determine how far we can go is over. If we agree that having millions of weapons of war on the streets is a bad idea, they're not weapons of... A fucking sword can be a weapon of war. It depends on how you use the tool. It's just a fucking tool. It's an inanimate object. On the streets is a bad idea. I asked this during the government dump. I'm going to ask it here. Senator Coons, can you provide me with a definitive list of gang members, armed robbers, and terrorists who bought firearms legally? What is that? You can't? Why? Here's the answer. Because they didn't buy it legally, you doof. Several gun control groups stressed Friday that they were not advocating confiscation, but they also didn't want Coons' lead in condemning O'Rourke's declaration. Let me see. I think it is very understandable that he is taking a policy position that the larger gun safety community hasn't taken, and he's trying to push the envelope, said Robin Lloyd, managing director of Giffords, the gun control group named after Gabby Giffords, the Arizona congresswoman who survived a gunshot wound to the head in 2011. That girl is ironclad. If the American voter does not think that's an appropriate solution, they'll let us know. MC, I don't even like this for one reason, creates a database of gun ownership. Not necessarily, because if they don't pass the background check and that gets put in the database, then that's one person that shouldn't have a gun. Because obviously they did something to break the requirements of you being able to pass a background check. Even the staunchly conservative Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Dan Patrick, said he supports background checks for all gun purchases after the El Paso attack and a second mass shooting in the state. Infighting and investigations at the National Rifle Association and election wins by pro-gun control Democrats last November have convinced some politicians that the winds have shifted on the gun issue. MC, you missed what I mean. The fact you passed gives them the names of those with guns. The Ripper Mitch, how many people on the no-fly list do not belong there? We know the government makes several mistakes. Every time the government puts their foot into something to regulate something, they make it worse instead of better. But, I don't know. None of the other 9 candidates on the debate stage contradicted him on his proposal to require owners of 2 popular styles of assault rifles, here we go again, to sell them to the government. 2 candidates, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker and California Senator Kamala Harris, have also called for mandatory buybacks of assault weapons. What is an assault weapon? What is an assault weapon? Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar asked if she agreed with O'Rourke Thursday night, allowed only that she preferred voluntary buyback to a mandatory one. All 10 of the Democrats on stage have called for an assault weapons sales ban. The latest sign of how the party has become emboldened on gun control. I'm going to be pedantic for a second here. I'm going to be absolutely pedantic for a second here, okay? Assault weapons. Okay? Put on your pedantic hat for a minute and go down the literal meaning of words with me for just a second. Okay? If I pick up a fork and stab somebody with it, technically that becomes an assault weapon, does it not? If I pick up a Louisville Slugger baseball bat and smack somebody upside the fucking head, is that not considered an assault weapon at that point? Because I used it to assault another individual? It'd be where the assault spoon. Exactly. If I pick up a bag of dice and instead of using it to play Dungeons and Dragons, I lob it at somebody's head, are those not assault weapons at that point because I have assaulted somebody with my bag of dice? I mean, I know I'm being pedantic. I know I'm probably being, what do they call it? Not obtuse. Over the top. I'm over exaggerating. I forgot the name of the fallacy. But, I call it accurate. Yeah. Beware the assault false accusation. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I know I'm being, some people will say I'm being, overly exaggerating when I say that. But I mean, anything can be a weapon if your intent with the thing is to hurt somebody else with it. I mean, if I were to drink all the coffee out of this cup, because I'm not going to throw this cup across the room at somebody's head with coffee in it, but if I were to smack somebody over the head with this empty coffee cup when it gets empty, is this not an assault coffee cup? Would this not be considered an assault weapon? Would they not dust this for fingerprints in an investigation and stick it in an evidence bag? Because I used this as a weapon? We need no longer fear the full coffee cup. Throwing a full coffee cup or hitting somebody over the head with a coffee cup that still has coffee in it is caffeine abuse. This has been a PSA. Do not abuse your caffeine. Use it responsibly. Proposals like background checks and so-called red flag laws, which allow authorities to confiscate guns from people who are deemed threats, are urgent. Okay, now we're going to break this down. And I'm going to put this in the color and what they want it to be. Because, being pedantic. Now, put ones in the chat of anybody watching that believes wholeheartedly if red flag laws get instituted, they will be abused all to hell and back by people with vindictive agendas. where there is a law trying to regulate something, trying to make something not a thing, or trying to outlaw something, there's going to be somebody that looks at that law and tries to exploit it for as much as they can exploit it for. Red flag laws can be exploited, especially now with the quote-unquote Me Too movement and the believe all women bullshit. You know, the listen and believe rhetoric of today makes the red flag laws the scariest fucking proposal I could ever see, next to completely repealing the Second Amendment. MC says red flag laws have already been abused by the FBI in Oregon. Shoot. Well, there you go. Lines like, we're going to come and take your AR-15 just play into the fears that the NRA has been stoking in a proposal that is just... Why do they think that the NRA is the only organization out there? I know they're the most vocal, but they're not the only one. And a proposal like that is just going to make rural Iowa, and I think probably rural areas elsewhere, more red, Varley said. You got that shit right. I think that's just a bridge too far for most rural folks. And it conjures up images of government coming in and invading your home, and images of big government trampling over the rights of individuals. Trump and White House aides have discussed a number of gun control measures with members of Congress, including steps to go after fraudulent buyers, notify state and local enforcement when a potential buyer fails background check, issue state-level emergency risk protection orders, boost mental health assistance, and speed up executions for those found guilty of committing mass shootings. It's just a fundraising... Well, they are a fundraising organization, Mitch, but at the same time, they have misspent and misappropriated funds. They have misreported their income. They've got a whole heap of fucking troubles that they've brought upon themselves because of their mismanagement. So, you've got that problem. The NRA is corrupt, just about as corrupt as the politicians that they lobby for. That's why I said just. Yep, exactly. You know, I still think wholeheartedly that they should pass a resolution stating that every member of Congress, every politician across the United States that holds a current office should wear a jacket with patches on it as to, you know, the major corporations that have contributed to their campaign. That way we can see who sponsors them. I know it sounds, and it is a meme, but I would like to see it happen. Hello, Intimidator0108. Good morning, honey, and I'm glad you could make it. States split apart by party on accepting Purdue Pharma settlement. Yep, you read that right. We're going to be looking at this map a little bit closer in a moment. The nation's Republican state attorneys general have, for the most part, lined up in support of a tentative multi-billion-dollar settlement with OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma, while their Democratic counterparts have mostly come out against it, decrying it as woefully inadequate. Those involved suggested it can't necessarily be explained by the fact that the Republican Party is considered more friendly to big business. Some of the attention is focused on the role played by Luther Strange, a Republican former Alabama Attorney General who's been working for members of the Sackler family, which owns Purdue Pharma. Okay, see, my question is he working with them while he is trying, while he is on the side of trying to get them, through these lawsuits and having to make them pay, creating a conflict of interest, or has he separated himself from the situation and is only being an attorney, since he's former Alabama Attorney General? Purdue has been generous in recent years to RAGA, which is the Republican Attorney General Association, contributing more than $680,000 to its campaign operation from 2014 to 2018. The company also gave the organization's Democratic counterpart, the Democratic Attorneys General Association, over the same 5-year period, but far less at $210,000. Okay, so if he was an attorney general during the time that this contribution was given, I would dare say that was a conflict of interest. All right. Catch you later, MC. Thanks for stopping by. The proposed settlement with Stamford, Connecticut-based drug maker could ultimately be worth up $12 billion, though critics doubt it would be close to that much. Nearly half the states and lawyers representing some 2,000 local governments have tentatively accepted the settlement deal. Under the deal, the company would declare bankruptcy and remake itself as public benefit trust, with its profits going toward the settlement. An Associated Press survey of Attorney General offices shows 25 states and the District of Columbia have rejected the current offer. Purdue is perhaps the highest profile opioid maker, but governments all are also suing the other drug makers, distributors, and pharmacies to try to hold them accountable for a crisis that has claimed more than 400,000 lives, there's something in my eye, sorry, in the U.S. since 2000, including deaths linked to illicit drugs such as heroin and fentanyl. But the problem is this. Purdue and their parent company, which, is it Johnson & Johnson? I think it's Johnson & Johnson. And their parent company is the sole handler of the materials needed to make the opioids. So you can target the other distributors and drug makers. You can sue all of them. But to me, the person that should be paying the most restitution should be the one corporation that is the sole distributor of the materials in order to make the opioids. Maybe it's just me, but that's the way I think. The only states with Democratic attorneys general to sign on are Mississippi and Michigan, which is one of the few states that haven't actually sued Purdue. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel noted the partisan split in a statement this week. While I have tremendous respect for my Democratic colleagues who have elected to opt out of settlement discussions, she said, ultimately each Attorney General is obligated to pursue the course of action which is most beneficial to our respective states. Wah, 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 wah. The Republican-led Attorney General offices in Idaho and New Hampshire have publicly rejected the settlement. Several GOP-led states have not said where they stand, but people with the knowledge of the negotiations say they are accepting the settlement. GOP attorneys general have generally contended that getting a settlement now is better than uncertainty and years of litigation, while the Democrats have mostly argued that the deal does not provide enough money and does not hold adequately accountable members of the Sackler family. Excuse me. The states that have refused to sign on are expected to object in bankruptcy court and to seek to continue lawsuits in state courts against Sackler family members who have denied wrongdoing. I'll come back to that. Miller said he expects a bipartisan group of states to keep working together on possible settlements with other defendants in the opioid cases. North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein, a Democrat, was one of the lead negotiators on the settlement and said that Strange played a big role. He was a lawyer to the family, and so we had multiple discussions with the family in which I indicated that a supermajority of states could agree to a deal if the Sacklers would simply provide more certainty as to the payment, Stein said in an interview. Almost all states would agree to the deal if the Sackler family would guarantee 100% just to make a payment. Those were the discussions we had. The Sacklers rejected those offers and said it was take it or leave it, and I'm leaving it. Paul Nolet, a Marquette University political scientist, said in an email that the GOP attorneys general and local governments don't see this as a bad deal under the circumstances, but he said Democrats have been stung by a backlash over settlements over foreclosures years ago, and they see political risks for not pushing more. Now, here's the thing that stuck in my craw. Here we go. I'm going to put this in bold. All right. You cannot say the Sackler family did not know what their corporation was doing. You cannot say that they did not know that Purdue Pharma was, underplaying the dangers of the addiction and the side effects of opioid use. Then again, you could argue that they had no hand in the advertising campaigns, which underplayed or downplayed the dangers of opioid use. It can go either way. The thing is, you have to follow the paper trail, okay? If they signed off on these campaigns, if they had a hand in these campaigns in any way, up to and including signing off and approval of these advertising campaigns that downplayed the dangers of opioids, then yes, they can't deny wrongdoing because they knew what advertisements were going out, and they probably know damn well what opioids can do to a person and how addictive they are. I mean, the opioids come from what? The poppy plant, if I'm not mistaken. And what else does the poppy plant produce? So it's going to be fun to see how this plays out. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. This is going to go on my list of things that I have to, exactly, Mitch, things that I have to keep an eye on and pay attention to and give updates for, which I will most assuredly do. So, that is it for the news segment. And that's another video down. If you liked it, there's this. If you didn't like it, there's that. There's a subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet. If you're not sure, there's more content you can watch before you make that all-powerful decision of clicking the red bell and making it go dark. There's also a bell that's just about as fickle as a pregnant woman in a candy aisle when she's got a craving or she's hungry. And because it only works whenever it feels like it. But the bell's there. In the description below is all the ways that you can support this channel, as well as links to blogs and other channels and so on and so forth. So, until next time, guys, take care of yourselves.